highvolumemusicradio.com. The Business Knowledge Broker Hour.
Hey, yo, Guru, you ready?
Business, marketing, accounting, social media, resources, strategies, tips, events. The Business Knowledge Broker Hour.
It's just savage business.
Grants, funding, capital, life
insurance,
annuities, finances, tax tips, strategies, music, business, local spotlights, business highlights, leadership, entrepreneurship. The Business Knowledge Broker Hour. highvolumemusicradio.com.
Hey, High Volume Music family, this is Candace Joseph, and I am back. Like I said, that was Sue Me by Sabrina Carpenter. Like I said, all night, my playlist is curated by the guests on tonight's show. So I'm going to see. You guys know how I do it. Y'all know how I do it. I just call people on the phone, and I say hello. Let's see if my first guest answers in. I'm going to bring up the mic.
Hello.
Hi, Miss Brooklyn. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is Candace Joseph from the Business Knowledge Broker Hour here on High Volume Music Radio. I was giving you a call to talk with you about the greatness of your podcast. Are you ready, ma'am?
I am very ready.
First and foremost, I want you to introduce yourself to those that are tuning in, those that are listening from wherever they're listening from, here in the area. I want you to go ahead and introduce your greatness.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Boykins, and I am a teen podcaster. I am 16, and I have the podcast Sit Back and Chat. I'm the creator and host, and it just launched this year. And it's about, giving life lessons. I talk about self-growth topics, and it's a podcast made by a teen for teens.
Amazing. First and foremost, Brooklyn Boykins. Round of applause. First and foremost, congratulations on the podcast. Congratulations on launching. And this is the thing, right? I want you to tell people the inspiration for your podcast. How did you come up with all this excellence? That's what I want to know.
Well, I always knew that I wanted to put myself out there, and for a while I wanted to create a YouTube channel, but then decided against that. And I love listening to podcasts in my free time, so I decided just to make one of my own and put my personality, knowledge, and everything like that out there in hopes of helping someone in some way.
I love that. And you said your podcast is, of course, you launched that podcast at 16. You are a stellar student in school. You have, future educational goals as well. But you said, okay, I'm going to start a podcast for teens to help teens. So give the audience a little taste of some of the topics that you guys talk about and why it was so important for you to help out your fellow teenagers.
So, for example, my second episode is called Your Mentality and Why It's Important. And that was just to show, positive thinking versus negative thinking. And that's a lot of the topics I talk about with my audience, keeping their mind positive and allowing positive things to come into their life. I have an episode about how to handle disrespect with respect, and an episode explaining how you're not for everyone. So it's just topics like that.
Oh, now let's talk about that one. You're not for everyone, okay? Because one of my people had that on earlier. Let's dig into that episode a little bit. What was the inspiration behind that? You're not for everyone.
I would say the inspiration behind that was just living life and realizing that no matter how hard you try, you're not going to get along with everyone or be friends with everyone, and that's just how the world works. And I just wanted to help, people younger than me understand that, because it can be a hard thing to understand and grasp, and it can be hurtful at times, so you just have to accept it.
Okay. I love your logic, first of all, and you do give the knowledge. I have to say that, and I love it because you also have you said you're going to do a future segment where you answer questions. So like you're debunking some of the things that people might want to ask questions about, but don't really know how to ask adults, and you've decided to really get in there and answer these questions for fellow teenagers. Give me some examples of those and why.
So, for example, in the future of my podcast, I want to have this segment where I have people reach out to me via private message on my Instagram account and ask for advice whenever they need help with. And then I talk about it on the show and give them advice, on the show. And then they listen in, and other people can listen and maybe learn something from what this other person's going through. And I mostly wanted to do this because I felt like it was a good idea, and it just helps me interact with my audience.
I love that. Now, since you have become a podcaster, what are some of the lessons that you've learned about yourself?
I would say I've learned a lot of how driven I am, and how determined, and how much of a perfectionist I am. Because I have to make sure each episode is like edited to the T and things like that.
Okay, I love that. Now, did you have any challenges along the way?
I would say my only challenge was before I started it. I was just scared of my peers judging me, and I feel like that was the biggest thing that held me back from doing it for such a long time before I actually created it.
So how did you get past the fear factor to jump out there and say, yeah, I'm doing this podcast, I'm going to help other people, and I'm not going to worry about your judgments? How did you get to that point?
It definitely wasn't overnight, but, just after a couple of weeks thinking about it, I just got to the point where I have this dream, and the only thing that's holding me back from pursuing it is other people. And in the future, if I don't do this and I look back on myself, I'm going to be very disappointed, because that's something really shallow to be holding me back from doing something really great for myself and other people.
Well, I have to say thank you. Thank you for being that voice, because, a lot of times you don't see a lot of, teenage podcasters that are out here talking about real life issues. And the thing about it is, I love it because when I listen to it, it doesn't come from like a scripted standpoint where there's an adult that's telling you what the agenda is and they're giving you the advice. I love it because I could tell that you genuinely, research the topic on your own. And for me, I get the feel that you reach out to other people to get their take on it before you discuss anything in your podcast. What's your process like? Because I absolutely love it.
Thank you so much for all those kind words. But I would say that my process is pretty simple. I just record, edit, and upload. But before the recording process, I have like a 15-page document, Google Doc, full of podcast episode ideas and like outlines and things like that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love it. So you said that you're a person that listens to podcasts, right? So
yeah.
What's your go-to? What's your go-to podcast?
I would say my favorite podcast is Don't Blame Me by Megan Rinks, and it's an advice podcast.
Okay. What about that podcast that grabs a hold of you? What is it about it that you like?
I just love the advice aspect. I love how honest they are. They're very funny, and, it just keeps me coming back every week.
I love that. So, since you're a podcaster, and if you could sit back and you think of someone who can come on your podcast and speak to fellow teenagers like yourself, who would that person be?
I've never really thought about having guests on my show. It's a solo operation.
Okay.
But I would say my older sister first, because she is older than me, has experience with all of these things, and he's funny and honest on top of that. So I think it would make a really good dynamic.
Ah, maybe a future concept. So I have to say, what's next for Brooklyn? We talked about the podcast. What's next for Brooklyn? Because you're a straight A student. You got some academic goals. I want people to hear about your academic goals for your future.
So in the future, I hope to go to college and major in something hopefully chemistry related. So whether that's pharmaceutical sciences or dentistry, something along those lines, and build a career and move somewhere warmer and take it from there.
Well, tell the listeners that are tuning in right now, because we have listeners from all over the globe. Tell them where you are hailing from right now and where you're trying to run from the cold.
So currently I live in Illinois, so the Midwest, and we had multiple snowstorms this year, which was awful. And I'm hoping to move away to Florida.
Okay, all right. Yeah, Florida is a warm spot. It's definitely that. I'm in Houston, Texas, and last week we got that cold snap, and everybody lost their electricity, and I think we lost our minds in the process. But you guys are veterans at this. We were new. We didn't know what to do out here. It was like, I don't know if I have the proper coat for this type of weather. Well, I have to say, I absolutely love the fact that you are into science and, you're into the sciences. And I think that a lot of people, they need to hear that. They need to hear what people's interests are. And I love the fact that your podcast is talking about being confident, being fearless, being, the best version of yourself each and every day. And I thank you for being one of those storytellers and, one of those voices that are out here that really believe in bringing light and knowledge to everyone. So I personally would like to say thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So is there anything else that you would love for the listeners of High Value Music Radio, the Business Knowledge Broker Hour with Candace Joseph, if they're listening from all over, is there anything that you want them to know in regards to podcasting, your podcasting, or maybe they have a teenager sitting at home that wants to be a podcaster too? Any words of advice or wisdom?
I would say my words of advice is that the hardest part of podcasting is starting. So as long as you have ambition and it's something that you want to do, then you're already halfway there. And once you get there, just don't quit and keep going and keep putting your voice out there. And for those who have younger kids or anything to that extent, allow them to follow their dreams and really support them. Support is really huge.
I love how you said that. You said really support them. So it's like, okay, no matter what, you show up, you support, you give that guidance, you give that knowledge, you give that love, and give them that push too. So I absolutely love that. Brooklyn, I want to thank you, for being a guest tonight. Look, I'm not going to keep you long because I want to make sure that you get those studies in for tonight and get that great podcast recording ready for the listeners' ears. What's the next topic for your next podcast, and when will it air?
So my podcasts air every Tuesday morning, so it'll be up before you wake up. And the month of March is going to be a long storytelling, so I'm going to tell some stories that happened in my life and kind of give the life lesson that stems from it.
That's amazing. Oh, I can't wait to tune in to that one. I cannot wait. I'm going to be there for the series because, she said it's March Madness. We're giving lessons, and we want you to build upon being your greatest self. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Look, I appreciate you, and I want to let you know that. So tell those that are listening in how they can find your podcast. Where can they find it, and where can they find you if they just want to reach out or maybe connect their teenager with you to get some of that great knowledge that you have and that great advice?
So to connect with my podcast and to connect with me, you can find my podcast on any major platform. So anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is, you can listen to it on there. And it's called Sit Back and Chat. And to reach out to me or see when new episodes are coming out, the podcast has an Instagram, and it is at sitbackandchat.podcast.
Absolutely love it. Well, you know what, Brooklyn? I want to thank you for being my guest tonight. Thank you for being awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. And you know what? Keep building on your podcast platform because it is absolutely amazing. And I see great things for your future academically, professionally, and definitely in the podcast space.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And I want to thank you for, giving the listeners of High Volume Music Radio some great tunes to listen to tonight. Because I've already played, Sabrina Carpenter and Sue Me. And as we're leaving out of this interview with you, I'm going to play some Shawn Mendes, Believe.
Yay.
So thank you for being my guest tonight. I really appreciate you. Keep up the awesome work.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
HighVolumeMusicRadio.com. The business knowledge broker out.
Hey, yo, Guru, you ready?
Business, marketing,